The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Time for a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently trading at $31,845. Bitcoin is slightly down about 2.6% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is also trading down about 1910. ETH is down about 1.7% over the day. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is James Putra, head of innovation labs at market data firm TradeStation. Welcome to the show, James. So we want to get your markets analysis, but first we just had this interview with Eric Voorhees, CEO of ShapeShift. He is decentralizing, going from a centralized traditional company to a fully decentralized company with no share structure, corporate traditional structure. And I believe you have some thoughts on this. You don't think that timing is an accident, do you?
So I think the challenge that we have is most of us use today's models to evaluate what ShapeShift is doing. And I think that's where we get a little bit stuck. What we're not really focused on or talking about, which is interesting out of this, is that the labor markets have fundamentally changed. And this has been an ongoing shift for multiple years between, so we created eBay platforms, we created Uber-type platforms, we created content platforms where people are able to start generating income outside of a traditional workforce. And we're starting to see a much larger adoption of these types of platforms. And with decentral autonomous, with DAOs that like ShapeShift is going down, it starts to create an interesting paradigm where people can choose where they work for. And this was really accelerated during the COVID times where most of the companies went remote. So we kind of took this environment where we used to have to go to the office. We made it so we don't have to go to the office. We made our labor forces mobile to be able to work for any firm remotely. And we have a huge group of people that are participating in the Uberization economy. And you start to see companies like ShapeShift come out. And it's really interesting because you don't have to necessarily be a full-time employee. And a lot of the questions were around what happens to your employees. Well, people now get to start looking at companies like ShapeShift or others and working on the stuff that they're most interested in, not necessarily as the only thing they do. They might be content creators, they might be doing things around staking, they might be participating in ShapeShift, maybe working on the Bitcoin protocols, but they can do a few things earning a good income and not have to be tied to one central vehicle or job. I think that shift is starting to become really interesting. We look at ShapeShift and we say, wow, pretty exciting, but it's that funny crypto company. That's not necessarily going to be the case because, sorry, go ahead.
Is that part of why we're seeing the DeFi market boom right now? You know, Bitcoin is it's in a bit of a lull. It has certainly had its run since December, and the DeFi market is taking off in its place. I wonder if it's related, and also a lot of people who aren't familiar with crypto would be very uncomfortable with earning in crypto, given the volatility. So maybe you could address that.
Yeah, so let's maybe first talk about the DeFi markets. What happened, and again, in beginning of 2020, I think at this point, when we all went on lockdown, it kicked a lot of people into side hustle mode and trading. And that became very interesting for folks to engage in some form of trading. There was no sports, there was not a lot to do. So they started to get engaged. At that time, the DeFi markets were really primed for people to start engaging in different types of trading strategies, whether that would be staking your assets, whether that would be creating an automated market maker type contribution where you can earn interest on making markets, or just trading through these various protocols like Uniswap, Polkadot, or Compound. And that allowed people to start to really wrap their heads around more advanced trading concepts, but outside of the traditional financial structures. So that's really what drove a lot of this, in my opinion. Now, regarding the getting paid in crypto, I think there is definitely concern for folks that are about getting paid in something like Bitcoin that has more volatility. But stablecoins are starting to become a more common place where we're seeing a lot more folks that live and breathe, conduct business in types of stablecoins. And kind of building onto that, if you start looking at things like the metaverse, where you have these large platforms that people live, play games, they own property, they own assets, they sell things, and they earn money, they're earning usually in some type of digital native token, whether that's a stable coin or a crypto asset. You have 2.5 billion people that are participating in the metaverse. 100 million people on a daily basis in the US engage in the metaverse, whether it's a gaming platform or something else. So the people are used to having some form of income from that type of interaction. So I think as more people get adopted to it, that concern about volatility starts to become less and less.
So James, I'd love to continue the conversation, but of course we got to talk markets. And you brought up stable coins, and so in the past few weeks we saw several $100 million worth of Tether reduced out of their asset base. So their total market cap went from 62.7 to about 62 right now billion. USD coin USDC had a dip in its assets as well. Are we looking at money being pulled out of the market? And if we're using stable coins as a proxy for interest, are we seeing just people losing interest in general, are starting to lose interest in crypto and walking away from it and cashing out whatever they have, or taking their losses and going home?
So from what we see from our vantage point as a service provider, we do not see that. Typically what we're going to notice is that when markets are a bit shaky or they're maybe in a bearish market, we'll start to see folks shift out of a digital asset into something like maybe Bitcoin for safety, but if that's coming down, it's not necessarily that desirable, or USDC or Tether. And now that we're in this area in the mid 30,000s, folks are starting to get really interested again, and quietly behind the scenes, the advanced folks are accumulating and consuming the variety of the crypto assets. What we do see is an inflow of stablecoins and assets, and generally, if you look at the on-chain data, you're going to see an outflow of crypto assets off exchange. And so that's not indicative of a lack of interest. It's maybe on the retail side, it's a lessening interest, but in sort of the crypto larger players, the flows are telling us something a lot different, that there's definitely an attraction even at these prices.
James, is it a good buying opportunity right now?
I can't make a recommendation, but if you, I am very interested in these prices. I think that if you were to zoom out on the chart, it'd be very, very disappointing if you didn't participate at this price.